So, hey,
Yeah.
welcome. Good to see you here, Mike. Julie and Annette, thank you for being here. Hello, either John or Casey, or John and Casey. It says both. Hey, Carlene, I'm sure others will continue to join. So, welcome. As you can see, this is set up like a meeting, not like a webinar. So, by all means, like pop on. This is real life. Hey, I'm guessing you're John and not Casey. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Good to meet you. I'm also John. It's a great name you got there. I'll forgive you for the missing H. It's not your fault. It's your parents. So, yeah. So I'm sure more people will pop in and join as we're coming in. But I think I'd love to just like pause for a moment and just kind of introduce, myself and the people on here. I'm assuming like you at least know my name if you're here. Maybe even if you've never seen my face or heard my voice, I'm John Neese. I write the Sell Your Smarts newsletter, and I've written a couple books, Survive and Thrive, and Always Be Teaching. And I lead a coaching program on all about how to help you create and sell your own premium programs to get to the point where you earn $10,000 or more per month. And that started as a client and became a coach on my team. And then Julie is also a coach in training on my team. And Mike is someone who's just gone through the program. And there's other people coming in as we go. But yeah, real quick. Annette, would you introduce yourself and just mention real quick the focus of your program? Just to be clear, Annette's program is not for everybody, but that's kind of the point, right? I want to just give you an example of like another coaching program that's not mine that we've created through this process. So yeah, Annette, would you just introduce yourself real quick and share that?
Yeah, I'm Annette Chesney, and I help Christian businesswomen rebuild their life after narcissistic abuse. So,
Very specific
mhm.
and transformational. I mean, for the right people. And that's kind of one of the things we work on together is getting clear on making sure that your program is magnetic so that it both attracts and repels. I'm happy to answer whatever questions people have. We've had some people submit questions in advance. There are people who are going to ask questions live. I also have just a couple slides to share. But first, actually, Mike, I'm wondering if you would be willing to share real quick. Just, you can spend a few minutes on this. If you would share a bit about, I guess, twofold, right? I'm just going to go ahead and presume the question. You just went through my accelerator program. So I'm curious kind of if you would be willing to share a little bit about your experience in that program, what that was like, and then as well kind of what that's led to so far. I know it's still early for you, but I would love for you if you'd be willing to share that.
So I am a productivity strategist, and when I started out this program and worked through the program with John, I wasn't as niched down as I am now. So I mean, I've been studying productivity and time management for a long period of time. I have my own community that really focuses on managing their relationship with time. But really, what I am drilling into more and more, especially with my group coaching program, is those that are night owls that are productive, focusing on people listening to their body clock and aligning with their circadian rhythm so that they can actually, do their most meaningful work without sacrificing or compromising their body clock in the process. And what I've learned and what I continue to kind of glean the great thing about the program is that you go through it, but there's always things you can revisit. It's like that book. There's books that you can read from cover to cover, and then like I've got it. But this is one where you revisit again and again. The lessons come back up, and going through calls with night owls that feel that they are kind of stigmatized, and they feel alone. They're kind of an isolated group, and you hear often that productive people can't be night owls. You have to get up in the morning and you have to tackle the day early on. So
The
being
5
able
a.m.
to
club.
go there you go, the 5 a.m. club, the miracle morning, all that stuff. I've been able to communicate and connect with people and begin my group coaching program around that. And it's still in its early stages, but the lessons that I've learned from John, and also those that are also in the program as well, because that's kind of cool too. You actually learned from people that are in the community and seeing some of the stuff that they've got going on. I've been able to kind of get clearer with the messaging and actually close on a lot of those calls, uh, building that program up so that I can start to make it something that I can trust again and again and again, as not only an impactful program for those that are taking the program, but also impactful for me and my business. So we're getting ready, but we're ramping up for the next iteration of the program. And I find that, this time around, I'm even better suited to go into those calls with those individuals, not just into the calls, but leading up to those calls. I've been able to actually do those with more confidence, more clarity, more focus, more purpose than ever before. And it's all due to, kind of the focus that John has within his programs and just applying myself to that program every step of the way.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm sure people have questions. Whether you're watching live or the replay, if you're here live, if you would just share your questions in the chat, and that's going to help me keep track of those. We're going to come back to those. But a couple things I want to highlight, Mike, about your story, and thank you for being just willing, free of charge to be here, to volunteer to be here today, and answer some questions as someone who's been through the program. That one of the things I love about working with you is that I've actually known of you like as a friend and kind of listened to your podcast, been a guest in your podcast for years. I mean, maybe almost a decade at this point. And throughout that process, like you're not new to the internet, right? Like you have a podcast, you have an email list, you've had courses, memberships, all that kind of stuff. But I think this is the most premium group program you've ever offered, or the first time you've offered a group premium program in this nature, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest difference between that and selling like a course or a book or something like that?
Well,
Is it just the price tag?
No, not just the price tag. The level
Yeah.
of engagement is higher. The commitment level is greater, both on both sides of the equation, to be honest, like on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Because it's active. There's an active component to it. And what's interesting, especially when you are talking to when you're in a really tight niche, or when you niche down, the accessibility that the people that are in your program have to you, not only like it's really beneficial because they don't want to feel like they're walking on their own, right? But you also, it's
Mm-hmm.
also, the power behind it isn't it's a one to one either, it's a one to many. So the group itself is learning from each other every step of the way as well, and I'm learning from them too, which is making the program better and better. Like even as I go into my third iteration of this program, it is getting more refined, more polished, because
Yeah.
of what the other people bring to the table, which I think is a huge benefit, and it's adding more value to the program. Which and I've always been resistant, John. You know me. I've been resistant
Yeah.
to charging high ticket items. I want people to be able to have the access to productivity practices and time management practices at a lower cost, because I think that it's everyone has time and everyone needs to know how to
Yeah.
manage their relationship with time, but there's a way to do it where I've found, and again, it took me a while to get there, where the value is inherent in getting these programs to the point where you are able to have clear lessons, clear, taking all the stuff you've learned over time and packaging it in such a way
Yeah.
where you are present and they are present, and the commitment is it's equal across both. So I find
Yeah.
it's also a lot easier in some ways to do a group program than one to one, because you're again learning from everybody else in the program, those people that are taking the program with you or taking your program, but you're also able to kind of again see what you can bring from those people to others in the group and take it from every cohort going forward.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. One other thing I want to highlight for you, Nick, Mike, specific to your story. And hey, Nick, glad to see you here. That's why I kind of slipped and said Nick. Nick's another client. Thank you so much for volunteering to be here. I appreciate it. And I want to come back and kind of talk to you in just a moment. Mike, I am curious. Well, wondering if you could, I guess, how do I want to ask this question? So one of the biggest differences in selling a premium program, like a group coaching program, versus selling a course or a membership or book or something like that, is the fact that there is typically a part of the sales process where you're literally talking to a client and saying, will you pay me thousands of dollars? And most of us got into online education not because we wanted to be in sales. And so I'm curious, kind of coming into the program, if you can kind of rewind a little bit in your mind, what was your initial thought process coming into that? Did you have a background in sales? Did you have an experience with that? What was your feeling going into learning how to sell a high ticket program? And then I'd love if you could just kind of walk us through that journey in terms of with using the frameworks that I teach, how that's worked out for you.
I have no background in sales other than stuff, back when I started this business. I was an artist, a creative at best. I had obviously a business background at Costco, but that stuff kind of, you don't really have to work hard to sell Costco stuff when you're working there. But
Yeah.
it took it. So I came in with very little in the way of comfort around it. I think that was the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing, is I didn't feel comfortable, and it your process, the idea of just the reframing of these types of calls, I think is really key. It made me feel more comfortable. It is done in such a way that it doesn't feel salesy, right? It didn't,
Yeah.
and I got better at it as we went through it. Some of my initial ones, yeah, I had some challenges with it because it was just hard for me to wrap my head around it, but it wasn't for what you were teaching. It was just what I brought to the table. As soon as you impressed upon me, hey, Mike, do it. Follow this process. Follow this map.
Hmm.
That was as soon as I did that, things started to flow. In fact, it's become
Oh no, it's become what?
one of my old friends. Yeah, I was on a
Wait,
retreat.
sorry, Mike, you said it's become, and there was this really dramatic pause. So I think we lost
No,
you
no.
there for a second. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did. I lost. So it's become something that I've gotten much better at. In fact,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say second nature, but I was just like, for example, I was just in Toronto on retreat, and I ended up going to a baseball game, and some friend of mine was in Toronto. We met up, and I actually ended up using some of the practices because he said I need help with I'm a night owl. I need help with this stuff, and I actually was able to follow the practice sitting having a beer
Amazing.
just before the game with this gentleman, and he's like, "Yeah, how do
Yeah.
I sign up? How do I do it?"
I love
And
that.
it was I couldn't believe it the way it was able to do it, and it felt natural.
Yeah.
So the framework that you teach, John, I think is something that for anyone who is either comfortable or confident with sales or someone who's just coming into it for the first time, it gives you a real frame to follow
Yeah.
that just works and works well.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, for sharing that. I appreciate that. Yeah. So what Mike's referring to is this serve call system that I teach for how to have a conversation with a potential client that is 100% designed on serving them. And as part of that, right, it's a powerful coaching conversation that is a customer research conversation that also leads to part of that coaching conversation being recommending that they join your program, if they're a good fit, but doing it in such a way that you're showing up as a teacher, as a coach. And I mean, there's a lot of ways out there to sell, but I don't know how many there are out there where you get thank you letters, because that's what I get and that's what my clients get when we have serve calls, is thank you notes, even for people who didn't become a customer. I had somebody reach out recently that said, "Hey, you remember that conversation we had?" And I looked, it was April 2023. So a year later, she was like, "I'm still thinking about that. That's still driving my business. I'm ready." Right. And so she was a not now a year ago. And to my discredit, I was not great at following up with her, but it was still etched in her brain of the impact of that one call. So that's a key part of what I teach. So thank you for sharing that, Mike. I appreciate that. Um, what I'd love to do real quick is I would love to actually share just a little bit of an overview of my coaching program, not like a ton of detail, but just a summary version of it. And then Nick, I would love it if you'd be willing to share just kind of your experience, and then we'll kind of open it up to Q&A from there. And I've also got some other clients who couldn't be here live who did send video messages. So I'll play some of those for you, or if we have a bunch of questions, we'll just focus on the Q&A. This is, designed to be a conversation, where I can serve you here, and where me and my team and my friends and my clients can as well. So my program that we're talking about here, this is really designed, it's called the Sold Out Accelerator. And that's because the focus of this program is to help you get to the point where you are earning $10,000 or more per month from your new sold out premium program. Now, there's some things baked into that, and the fact that like the whole sold out thing, that's a positioning strategy that we use in the process, where what you do is first you launch your coaching program, right? So I teach you how to create that, how to sell that, how to position and talk about it. And I do recommend that you start with a minimum price of $2,000 per person. But I've had clients charge, I mean, at this point, as much as $30,000. So that a lot of that depends on who your target customer is, right? So we're going to start typically with a program that's $2,000 per person and recruit your first 5 founding clients. So that's kind of step 1, right? When we do that, now you've got a sold out program. And when we do that, now we can have a repeatable system where you can increase the price or the number of people in that program with each time that you open it up. And you're coming from a place of strength and authority as a sold out coach, that makes it really effortless for you when you're talking to your target client to close that sale as that program scales. And so I had plenty of clients who started with like, the 5 clients at $2,000 each, and then gone to, okay, next time it's 10 clients at $4,000 each, or 15 clients at $5,000 each. And some people, the right price point is in the $2,000 range, but sometimes the price gradually is going to go up depending upon your target customer, and depending upon the promise of transformation in your program, the price may go up to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or $10,000 per client. Like I said, there's outliers of like, I have some clients who charge as much as 30,000, but I would say probably most people, if you're more B2C, where you're helping with like health or relationships, then probably $5,000 is the sweet spot that most people settle in time as the offer matures. And if you're more B2B or more wealth focused, where you're helping people make money in their business or in their life, then typically the price point ends up kind of somewhere around the $10,000 mark, being that kind of sweet spot. But that's something we kind of work into, right? We don't come out of the gate with a $10,000 program usually. And then the focus is build a repeatable system so that you're earning $10,000 or more per month from your sold out premium program. So just because you're here, even if you're watching this replay, you get this too. But just because you're here, I've asked my team to, and including myself, I'm also on my team. We blocked out time on our calendar for some complimentary coaching calls. And so if you're interested in this, of course, like we're not going anywhere right now. We still have plenty of time to answer your questions live. But if you decide that you want to have a one-on-one conversation with my team to talk more about your specific situation, to see this is a good fit for you, and then to decide whether or not to join, then I would just click that link in the chat, or it's on your screen as well. It's just sellyoursmarts.coach. Oh no, you know what? I don't think it works if there's an S in the link. That's a weird bug. So I'll just fix that real quick. So it's HTTP without the S, but then that's sellyoursmarts.coach to book a coaching call. So that's a bit for you. As far as what the program actually entails, because obviously that's a big question we get, the core of that is this 12-week accelerator training where you get week by week. Each week you get, okay, here's your lessons, here's your homework, here's what you need to do. And it is an accelerator. So it's designed for you to actually get to this point where you are creating, launching, and selling a program in that 12-week period. Every week there is work to do. But I've designed this where ideally you can set aside about an hour a week just to complete the lessons and the homework, right? So that's a core part of that process right there. Nick, was that your cat? I heard a little bit of a screech. Hopefully it wasn't a child. It sounded like a cat. And then as beyond that, you also have group coaching calls. And we do these every single week where you're on the call, and that's where you're able to get extra live feedback where you're saying like, okay, here's what I've learned, here's what's next, where am I stuck on this? And I mean, I find a lot of people find a lot of value from that, even when they're not the one who's sharing the feedback live. Mike, would you agree with that? Like the kind of value you get out of that being more than just sharing your question, but also hearing from other people what they're working on?
Absolutely. There's a lot of great little I remember capturing just stuff relentlessly when other people were commenting and sharing their insights, because there's lots of ideas that you can take from them.
Yeah, I think that this is honestly a big part of the program is that, because one person will come on, we'll deep dive on their offer, but as we're fine tuning their pricing of their offer, the chat will be blowing out with people having light bulb moments left and right. But one thing I've added this time, and this is something that I've done sort of informally in the past, and so Mike and Nick, this might be a surprise to you, but this is something new that's a formal part of the process, is that you also get paired with a one-on-one coach. And so now it's like you have someone who's checking in with you. You're meeting with them once a month to map out your action plan. They're checking in with you every single week to get a weekly report on your activity, what you're doing, and helping you stay focused. And I find this is the right balance of like group support and one-on-one support, where you have the conviction from that one-on-one coaching of exactly what you need to do in your specific action plan, but you also have a little bit of positive peer pressure in that group of like what other people are doing and being inspired by other people. And so, that's the program in a nutshell. This is something that I only added after I ran this program for 2 years, which is that if you show up and do the work, I guarantee you will earn your investment back during this program, or we'll coach you for free until you do. This is a 100% ROI guarantee. Now you do have to show up and do the work. That's why those are bold, right? It's not wow. Okay, Zoom is very excited about that ROI guarantee. But you do show up and do the work, right? I mean, this is not a get rich quick scheme. It is a strategic way to grow your business by any means, and it is a step-by-step systematic approach that is tried and true and has worked for many entrepreneurs in many different industries and niches. So I know it works really well, but you do have to do the work, right? I mean, that is part of this. So if you decide you want to join, I will also drop this link so you have in the chat right now, but I'm not going anywhere, but you just go to sold.accelerator.com, and there you'll see different options there in terms of how to join, how to bank your first payment. But when you do that, right away, we're going to reach out and schedule your first personalized call with your coach. It's going to map out your action plan, but you actually get access to the week 1 of training immediately. I've set that up now so it's automated. So as soon as you join, you get access to week 1, you can get started right away. And that's kind of the program in a nutshell. So Like I mentioned, I've got more stories to share from other clients, and I'm happy to answer your questions, including some of the questions that were submitted in advance. But first, Nick, I'd love it if you would be willing to come on the mic. And so um, now I'm confusing the word mic with Mike, but Mike Vardy, not microphone. Mike Vardy, went through my program, a few months ago, and so he's been kind of iterating his program. Nick is, just fresh off of the accelerator boat, so to speak, of finishing the accelerator program and kind of moving on to the next phase. So, Nick, I would love it if you would be willing. Would you share a bit about your experience in the program in terms of, your expectations coming into it, what your experience was like in the program, what kind of results you've had so far?
Absolutely. And sorry, I was a few minutes late. It was childcare situations, and that noise that you
Totally
heard,
get it.
it was a child. It was a child. It was
It
not.
was a child. Okay.
It was
Wow.
a, it was a child coming in doing the thing, and I just hit the microphone in time. It made it sound like a
Sound like a screeching cat. Yeah. Okay. Well, everything okay now?
yeah, all good, all fine. So
Okay. Good.
another costume change,
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. So great experience going through the accelerator program. My expectations meeting John, and I shared that, was that there's an allure to working with John, and the way that he has created his program with the certainty around what it delivers, that it's so powerful, was just exactly the right fit for where I am. And I already have a very established, successful coaching program, and what John's Accelerator enabled me to do is not only create groups from the one-on-ones that I had, but also create the clarity about who I want to work with, which is so important, of course. And it's something that has been on my mind for years, and it's I heard it so many times, but never actually did it. And it really allowed me with certainty to get more specific about who my groups are for, what it's about, and creating a 10x promise, which is the foundation of what am I actually delivering here. And a promise for a price is something I think about all the time, which I believe is John's, or John shares at least. And
Yes. As far as I know, it's original. I don't know.
yeah, so, all these things come from somewhere at some point. So yeah, I'm sure it's yours. And just thinking in that perspective is really helpful to think about, like, what's the delivery overall, and just the certainty to roll through step by step in order to do the appropriate reach outs, hand raises to build the group. Has just been a powerful thing for me. And where I am right now is that I've got 2 weeks left of my first cohort, and I'm beginning to fill my second one, which is due to start in 3 weeks' time. And I've followed exactly the program in terms of how I would lay it out to get. For me, it was 6 people in, and it's great to use language around founding members. It's so powerful. I'm a huge believer in the power of language, and what we focus on is what we get. And John just does the program overall just does a great job really defining all the language in order that you can continually be in the right mindset to deliver on what already is your expertise out into value into a group.
That's phenomenal. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, I know there's a few people kind of like live tuning in. Please pop your questions in the chat, or if you want to come on screen, we can totally talk about that. I'm happy to answer your questions here. It could be a question about your specific offer, it could be a question about joining my program, whatever it might be. Nick, I'd love to hear from you in terms of kind of one of the things that I'm going to go a little meta for a second. One of the things I teach inside the program is that what you're selling is not just coaching and training. You're selling people into an identity shift of becoming a different version of themselves. And so, Nick, my question for you is, how has your identity begun to shift as you've gone through this program and as you've launched your own group coaching program? I'm curious kind of how has that changed in terms of how you show up in your business, how you show up in your life, how you think about the opportunity ahead of you? I'm curious, what would you have to say to that?
Yeah, this is much bigger than just a move to group coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my belief as a coach is that I can coach anyone, anywhere, anytime, and anything. And that's a very powerful belief that served me very well. But it also has a limit, because if I say that, then I'm asking everyone else to choose. So back to some of that ideal client stuff, I'm making a switch to say, okay, here's how I work with people, rather than a fundamental piece of going to a client and saying, hey, look, what do you want? I'll help you on whatever it is that you want. Define what it wants. whilst that's still the case, the most powerful piece is saying, this is what I know I can deliver.
Yeah.
From all the people I've worked with, if I distill it down, this is the thing I deliver, and you're the person I work with. And just doing a serve call this week, as I'm going through finding out about this person, about what their business set up, I already know from beforehand that they're most likely going to be a great fit and well qualified. And as I'm going through, I'm so much more attuned to those things now as well. So it gives me that much, even more level of precision. So when I'm asking them questions, I'm getting that feedback. I'm ticking things off in my head, going, yep, that works. And as I'm describing it, I'm getting the feedback. I know it's going to resonate with them. So I'm so excited about what they hear. And then I can throw up on the screen the same thing I just said. They've said something and be like, yes, this program is just for you. And I can throw it up on the screen and have that there as though it was magic, because that's just exactly what they said and I already had it on the screen.
Yeah.
So the change in identity is a building identity of knowing that the baseline is I can do what I can help anyone, but if I can help the most people by being the most specific in saying, this is what I deliver, it's for you. And that's how it started to, that's the most fundamental piece of how it started to shift for me, because then when you're moving forward and you're creating what you must have in your business, then that's how you can kind of bend the world to your will and are able to create the most value impact.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. Nick, and then Mike, I'll circle back to you. I'm curious, what would you just say to someone who's, there's really two decisions that people make usually when they join my program. One is the obvious one, which is like, should I join this program, right? But at the same time, there's usually a question of, should I make a group coaching program or some kind of premium program like that? Should I make that a priority right now? Because it's always on the wish list. But I'm wondering if you could speak to someone who's on that fence. It's like, I'm thinking about course launches and all these other things. Should I prioritize the premium program, and if so, why? And should I join John's program, and if so, why? So Nick, I'd love it if you would speak to that first, and Mike, I'd like to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I think I joined just, Mike, as you were saying something like this, Mike, must to me, around the impact of working in groups. I think if you're whatever your expertise is, and you're adding value to people in one-on-one or in different ways or multiple different areas, there's a lot of power on one-on-one. And I just think the one-on-one is the most powerful. How can it be any other way? Because it's that most intensive time. But what you will find in a group is that you actually you amplify and magnify the power you've got, because it's not just your power, it's you're to get that from everyone else in the group that are essentially peers of each other. And so I would say that if you're on the fence around moving into group to group coaching, you got to really ask yourself, are you on the fence about being successful in your business? Because that's really the question to answer. And maybe the overall group coaching isn't what you're going to go into forever, but you're going to get so much clarity about where you want to go and what impact you can have. It may not be the answer forever, but it's certainly going to be something that's going to be so powerful on that journey as you move forward.
That's so good. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate you sharing that. Mike, what about you?
I think if you're on the fence about this, and I echo Nick's sentiments as well, but the other thing is, and I don't know that this may be something that you think about out of the gate, is what you'll learn in this program is transferable too. So it'll help you build that program, but you'll be able to take this stuff and use, like I shared in the story, it becomes ingrained and it works. And you'll find that it actually amplifies not just that group coaching element, which will only get better and better, but some of the stuff that you teach, the resources that you offer, John, are transferable beyond that. So for the value you're getting just inside of the group coaching program elements is huge, but it's stuff that you'll be able to apply to other elements of your business. And I think that's an intangible that I found that I didn't expect, and it's made it worth its weight in gold beyond what I got out of the program on its own.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Annette, I'd love to kind of switch gears a little bit and pull in some of the Q&A that we got. Do you have that document up by any chance, or could you pull it up so you could share some of the questions that we've got so far?
Yeah, sure thing. So we've got a question that Jamal asked. So Jamal, if you're watching the replay, here's your question. My question would be around my specific audience. I'm a music business coach, and getting indie musicians to invest in anything, let alone a high ticket program, is nearly impossible. I'm just not sure how feasible it is to offer a premium program for my audience as the lead off. Still trying to wrap my head around not offering the gateway product first. Yeah, it's a paradigm shift.
It's a paradigm shift. Yeah. So I mean, I guess the first thing I would say to that was for Jamal, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, I would say that what selling a premium program forces you to do is it becomes a forcing function to really keep your energy focused on where you can provide the most dramatic transformation in people's lives. I mean, there's a reason I say stop selling petty and start selling premium, because the reality is we all spend money on all kinds of things. And so, the price point I usually recommend people start with is that $2,000 number. That's not a magic number. I mean, you could charge less. You could charge $1,000. It's still a premium program. You could charge more, but that number is not like a pulling out of thin air number. That's pulling out my really nerdy economics background, because I actually have a degree in economics. I used to work for an economics research lab. The average family in the United States, the average disposable income they have is about $2,000 a year. And so that's money that's not budgeted towards, the house, the car, the kids, the groceries. And it's like, it's going somewhere, right? Usually it's not going to just accumulate in their bank account. Usually it's going to like some extra, a new TV on Black Friday, or, maybe like a, I don't know, what can you spend $2,000 on anymore? Like a weekend beach trip, maybe, if you're frugal, and you drive. So, I mean, that's money that you can, basically, like, what you're doing is you're competing against all of the inferior ways that people can invest that amount of money. And if you're talking to musicians, well, I mean, they're spending thousands of dollars on instruments, microphones, recording equipment, recording studios, training, travel. There's a lot of things they're spending money on. And so sometimes I find it helpful to just ask, like, just literally start a running list for your target customer of like, okay, where are they currently investing at that level? I was talking to a client once about this, and he was having trouble. He was having trouble thinking about selling a premium program because he was like, well, my conference is only like $200. But I pointed out to him, I was like, well, yeah, but your conference costs people about $2,000. Because to go to a conference, you have to book a flight, book a hotel. You got to get, either pay for parking, or you get to ride to the airport. You have to take time away from other things like work or business. And so you want to look at the full picture here. Where are they already spending this money? And with indie musicians, I would say then the question is, what do they want, right? And it's like there's a lot of things they want that you could get very specific in. Like, for example, publish publish your first album, is something that's important, like actually learning how to, I mean, there's so many directions you could go depending on Jamal's background, but one of them could be, literally like learning how to self-publish songs every week on Spotify. And there's a handful of artists who've done that, right? Most artists don't publish that much music. But there's a handful of indie artists. Connor Price comes to mind as one that I really enjoy. That he has a whole line in one of his songs where he talks about the fact, like, I don't wait 6 weeks. I just drop songs when I write them, And so that's a key thing that could be an example. Since Jamal's here, I'm just kind of picking an example. But yeah, I would just encourage you that typically within your target client base, if you think about the whole group of people, it's overwhelming, right? How can you create something that they're all going to spend $2,000 on? You're not going to. What you're talking about is less than 10% of your target clients are probably going to buy a premium program. But what are those people who are extra invested willing to pay for? Yeah.
And can I chime in real quick? I don't, because this is an area I struggled with as well. Like, like how much, and one of the things that came up, which I think is worth noting, there are payment plan options that you can look at if that's a barrier to entry and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You can get creative with that $2,000 plus price point, and I ended up doing that, and that helped. And I mean, if you're, again, when you're dealing with musicians who are like artists and so on and so forth, that may be the way to do it. But my initial thoughts before I joined the program were, well, let's just not offer something like that. And John was like, no, there's ways to do this in a way that makes sense, so that, like you said, John, you're not playing petty, you're playing premium, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that, Mike. Thank you for saying that. John asked a great question in the chat. I just want to, and so he said, for us, we are trying to figure out which program and path we best. We're in the very beginning stages of outlining the content. We are not in the launch or marketing phase. Should we join Sell Coach Club or Sell Accelerator? Well, I'm honored that the answer is, should I join one of John's programs or the other of John's programs? But Nick, you already answered this in the chat, but I could always answer this, but part of the benefit of this Q&A is that I've got actual paying clients here. So Nick, I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share your experience. What should John do?
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems really counterintuitive, but you really got to sell out the program, then build out the program.
Yes.
And that not only does it feel counterintuitive, but it also can feel disingenuous. I'm selling this thing that I haven't even got yet. How crazy is that? But the reason is actually you're valuing those people into the program further because you're honoring delivering the thing that they actually need rather than spending a whole bunch of time. And you would spend a whole bunch of time figuring out the nuance of the process of the content and all of the outline of everything. And then only to find out people that like, you got to change it anyway. You got to move it around. And so I'm a big fan of being 100% scripted, but 100% flexible. And so you know what overall you want to deliver. The content, it will build itself as you go through and get feedback. And so it will allow you to get even tighter to listening to what your clients are asking for.
Love that.
Yeah, I can second that, what you just described, Nick, because in the past, I did that very thing. You know, I had done all this work. I was the expert on stuff. I think I knew what I was doing, built out the whole program, put it out there, and mostly crickets. And really disheartening to do that. And when I stopped and went, okay, I'm gonna like humble up here and I'm gonna sit and listen to what these people actually want and need, what they're looking for, and frame it to meet that need specifically and use the words that they're using to describe it. And I also dialed it in. So instead of trying to like, I can do this whole journey for you, I dialed it into a specific aspect of it with a specific outcome that we had, and then built it from that. And it was amazing how things changed once I did that.
Yeah, love that. Thank you, Nick, for joining. I know he just had to jump off. And then thank you for those comments. I want to just, I mean, I could say all of that, but it's I think better coming from you two first, and then I can kind of echo that and just say like, that this is a big mistake people have is they think, okay, well, I got to build it first. But if you build it, they will not come. And the process that I teach on how to sell a premium program is all customer research. And so literally in the process of selling it, you're getting invaluable, super detailed, nuanced information from your target client about what exactly they are trying to accomplish. And that doesn't mean necessarily what exactly is in the program, right? Because they probably don't know what they need. They don't know what they want, right? So we're focusing on getting clear on what do they want so you can tell them what they need. And so then what I typically recommend is literally when you start the program, the first thing we focus on is creating, you heard people talk about it today, a 10x promise. It's a single sentence that captures the total takeaway of your program. So for mine, that's, earn $10,000 or more per month from your new sold out premium program. Just to kind of call out a couple that are even already been here, for Mike Pacquione is a great one, a good example of one that once he got a clarity on a 10x promise, he shared that on stage and his waitlist was overflowing and he sold out his cohort from one opportunity to speak on stage. And it's because his 10x promise was, I can help you create an unforgettable signature talk that will earn you instant trust with any audience. For the right person, it's just like, sign me up, right? He's not saying, I'm going to teach you how to structure your speech and I'm going to teach you, how to like be a good speaker. It's just the outcome is unforgettable signature talk that earns you instant trust with any audience. So what we do with the program, just to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit, is we get clear on the 10x promise. You're going to want like a one-page outline of like week by week, here's what I think we're going to talk about in the program, right? We're not just kind of pulling out of thin air here. But then the actual material, I recommend you create it week by week. Literally, that first cohort is paying you to create the content, is what they're doing. And so each week you're teaching it. And then what you'll find is that your outline will change. Because in the process of selling it, you'll learn, oh, I thought this over here was the most important part, but actually everyone's really struggling over here. I thought that was the easy part. Let's spend more time over here. And the same thing will happen once you actually start coaching, is once you start leading the program, you'll be in week 2 or week 3 and you realize, okay, some people are still stuck in week 2. They need this, I need to teach them this other framework that I didn't even think to include. And week 7 is like totally unrelated. And so basically as you teach through, your outline is going to change. And so now I have a recorded version of my premium program because I've been teaching it every quarter, every 90 days for 2 years. So that's the only reason why now is the first time that I'm rolling out a recorded version of it. Because I'm like, okay, we've dialed it in enough that I know what needs to be the core of this. But that's only because we've gotten so many case studies and success stories of people going through the program. So John, if you're still, I think you're still on here. So if you have a follow-up question to that, or let us know, or if you have any, I don't know, other clarifying questions. Mike, anything else you want to add to that conversation?
No, I mean, that promise was super helpful for me to get clear with not just them, but with me going into every single one of those
Mm,
serve calls, right? Which was huge. And I mean, I know that there's um, a hesitance to niche down. Like you're like, but I have so many, like, but to your point, what you said earlier, John, is you that's going to help you solve those specific problems for those specific people. I know
mhm.
when I sent out a hand raiser email to say who are the night owls that are struggling, I got, as I would as I figured I would, but I didn't actually take action. And once I did, I'm like, oh my goodness, I have a bunch of emails to send to people
Yeah.
because I got a whole bunch of like, that's me, that's me, that's me. And it from there, I was able to kind of move forward with this group program in a way that gave me the confidence to start building it. But I mean, to go back to
Yeah.
that question was, should I build it before? No, like all of this stuff, you learn all of this inside of this program, and it's going to save, as a productivity person, it's going to save you time,
Yeah.
effort, and energy, and you'll be able to give that effort and energy and attention to the stuff that's going to actually have a huge impact to the people you're trying to
Yes.
help.
That's why it's an accelerator. It's about speeding up results. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah. So Annette, what other questions do we have? And also John, I appreciate that you joined. I know you jumped in halfway, jumped on camera. Also happy if you have questions, you're welcome to drop those in the chat, or you can bring you on camera and talk about it in just a moment. Annette, I know we have at least one more question or two in the queue. Can you share that with me?
Yep, sure thing. Get myself unmuted here. Let me pop over to this question here. Okay, this is from another John who asks, the question I'm most interested in has to do, I wonder if this is the John we were just talking to, has to do with content creation. That's the stage we're at. Would you guys be able to help us organize all that?
Oh, okay, that was him.
That's
Yeah.
question one.
Yeah, we need some questions from some non-Johns here because with me
Okay.
on camera, John Lester on camera, and then another John here in the chat asking questions, people are going to start wondering if I wrote all these questions. No, I'm
Yep.
kidding. But
And there's a second part to this question too,
yeah.
but this is interesting to just unpack this one for a minute when the terms of the content creation, wanting to know if we'll help them organize all that. What would you say to
Oh
that?
yeah. Well, I mean, we won't do it for you, just to clarify. This is a
Mm-hmm.
coaching program, but we'll help in the sense that like you'll say, okay, here's my outline. What do you think? And then I'll say like, okay, well, let's talk through this. And I have a whole framework on how to teach wisdom where we break down like knowledge and experience. You kind of have this whole system for how do you build out the curriculum of your program so that it's effective in terms of people learning. So I hope it's helpful. And I think this is actually related to a follow-up question John asked in the chat of saying, would you recommend an evergreen course that people purchase or is it a week-by-week program? Yeah, so I definitely recommend you do not do an evergreen course until you run it as a coaching program first, live. It'll be a totally different program. And I've just seen too many people that have ignored that advice and said, I'm going to go create a course and I'm going to sell it. And they'll come back and they're like, John, it's not selling. Or people are buying it, but they're not finishing it. And it's because you didn't teach it live first. Because teaching it live first is when you get the live feedback interaction that actually takes what you have to teach from good to great and turns it from something that's interesting to something that's useful. And that's a big shift. And that's critical. So I 100% recommend always teaching it live for a premium program. If you want to create like a $50 course or something like that, I think the risk is pretty low. And so, yeah, you can just do that. But honestly, nowadays, usually if I'm going to sell, actually, even my, $50 or $100 courses, I still teach those live because I know I'm going to get live engagement that's going to create a better version of the product. That doesn't mean you always have to teach every product live. For a premium program, yes, week by week program. So let me just pull back the curtain a little bit more on the content of what I teach and just say, kind of like fast forward to like what I'm going to teach you in the program is that, there's a lot of different ways to structure a group coaching program. We could totally talk about the different ways. Sometimes there's an in-person component. Sometimes usually it's all virtual. There's a lot of nuance, but there is sort of a wet clay I like to start with, right? And so I think if we're potters here, you start with the wet clay and it's kind of got a shape here that you can mold for your business, right? You mold in different fashions. So the wet clay that I recommend, John just said he's going to take a backseat for any non-Johns, and I appreciate that. But please bring all your questions. It's helpful. Let me back up the wet clay. The wet clay that I recommend we start with is that let's imagine for a minute that your program is a 60-day group coaching program where you're meeting with 5 people once a week for about an hour or maybe 90 minutes. And in those 90 minutes, you're teaching them a concept or an exercise and having them, work on that live, and then you're answering their questions and coaching them through to implement it. So really what that means is that over the period of 60 days, you need about 8 lessons, right? And so we need to get critical on like, what are the key lessons you need to teach to get the result? It all comes from the 10X promise. The promise, we kind of work backwards from there. Like, okay, so to achieve that promise, what skills and experience do you need? What templates, tools, tricks? But that's kind of the wet clay. Is that's like, okay, 5 people meeting once a week for 60 days or 2 months, paying $2,000 each. Some people have programs that end up being 6 weeks long. Sometimes people have programs that are 6 months long. I've had some programs that are as long as 12 months. But that wet clay is usually where everyone starts. Then we kind of mold it from there. Mike, where'd you land in terms of the length of your program and the price?
I started off with 8 weeks, and I've condensed it down to 6 now, with
Okay.
a week to present their capstone projects. That kind of fits in the middle. And I'm at 2,000 right now. But like the nice thing is that I can see probably after another maybe 1 or 2 that it'll go up for sure.
Okay, awesome. That's great. And how many people? What's your cap for your cohort?
Right now it's 6. I like the number 6, but the idea will be to run maybe a couple at the same time because of the same
Okay, great.
program, and then that
Yeah.
would be 6 in each one, so we'd get to basically 12. I think that's kind of where I'm going to cap it at 12 ultimately, but we're still in that growth phase, so to speak.
That's awesome. Yeah, totally. No, I love that. And well, and you still have these. It's good to have that slow down momentum. 6 to 2,000 is still $12,000 every time you run that. I mean, it's a significant amount of money, and so that's good. And these are now super fans and all your other products. They become the testimonials that you have in other things. In your case, Mike, as an author, they also become the stories in your book, right?
Well,
Because
and
you're working closely with these people.
the iterative process of once you've built it and you've got people, then the iterative
Yeah.
aspect of it makes it, there's an ease to presenting it a little bit more every time you do it too, which is also beneficial.
Yeah. I have a couple of video messages I want to play real quick from people who weren't able to be here live. But before that, I just want to pause real quick and just say, make sure if you haven't already to book a call with the Sell Your Smarts coach. So that link is in the chat, but it's just sellyoursmarts.coach. And that gives you one complimentary coaching call with a coach on my team. And so we can talk through your specific situation, your target customer, your niche, kind of get an idea of what your product might look like. And then, with that, you can decide whether or not this is a good fit for you. But because of the 100% ROI guarantee, I do hope that you'll take a chance. That's designed, really to try to just take away all the excuses that if you're like, okay, I'm ready to commit to my business, I'm ready to commit to scaling it, I know a premium program is part of it, then that's the easy button is what I've tried to design there for you. But yeah, let me pull up. Yeah, so I'm also going to drop this in the chat. And of course, if you're watching this live, you won't have the chat. So if you go to meets.tips/stories, you will see this. Let me pull it up real quick. This is a collection of stories from people who have agreed to kind of to share their experience. I'm not going to play all of these for you live. We would be here for probably another hour, kind of going through each of these. But I know there were a couple of people who couldn't be here live today that wanted to share their experience. And so let me see real quick. All right. So you can see the kind of summary version here, right? But let me just play the first 2 for you, and then we can talk about it.
Run their full. Hey, my name's Sean.
Just to clarify real quick, can you hear that all right when I hit play? Just want to make sure. Yep. Okay.
Blanc, and I help busy business owners run their full-time business on a part-time schedule. And that's something that I learned from John Meese. So I have been doing a group coaching stuff for about a year now, year and a half, as I record this for you guys. And I had done this initial pilot and it went really well. People loved it. And then I tried to sell the group coaching program again. And for about 6 months, it was just crickets. And I really struggled to get anybody in the door. And I knew that it worked. I knew it was awesome. And I knew that like people would benefit from it, but I couldn't figure out how to bridge that gap. So I was talking with John and he offered to help me jump in and do his 10K accelerator program. And I was pretty skeptical at first. Well, not pretty skeptical. I was nervous because I'm very much the sort of person who's like, I can figure it out. I can do it on my own and I'll get there. But I was like, well, it's been 6 months and I have not done a good job of selling this. So maybe I can't figure it out and maybe I could use some help. So it felt a little expensive, but I also was like, this is where I want to go with my business and this is the work that I want to do more of. So I jumped in and signed up, and it was phenomenal, and it changed everything. So now, as I am recording this, since working with John, I've got 2 sold out programs with another one that looks like it's about to sell out as well, literally within months. So I more than 10x'd my investment from John's program in less than 6 months, which is phenomenal. And something that I really loved about the program itself was how simple it was. It was very simple, which meant that it was easy for me to apply it without me having to change a bunch of things about my business, without me having to train an assistant to do stuff. Very easy for me to take a few just core things, slide them right into what I was already doing with a few adjustments. And it made it significantly easier for me to happily and gladly be able to sell my high ticket coaching at a, I doubled my price for it pretty fast, and people weren't even blinking at the new price, and they were asking to sign up. One guy actually today told me, he goes, "I would be stupid if I didn't sign up for that." No one's ever said that to me before. And so just being able to position things better and then have a system for selling it in a way that makes sense and is really serving our clients. And so we're seeing these amazing results with the people that are going through it. And we're getting the exact right people in the door. So it's just been a win-win all around, and really grateful for being able to go through the program and then use this stuff going forward. So definitely accelerated things for me and has been awesome. So anyways, John, thanks, and good luck to you guys.
Hey, my name is Kathleen. I took John's accelerator program after taking another person's accelerator program on the same topic. And what I felt like was such a breath of fresh air after the first one was more expensive and less actionable. So I came away from it thinking like, okay, well, I don't know how to build the group coaching program. And the truth is, like, if you can say group coaching program, you can build it. But some of us, like me, need help on how to do that, how to attract people, how to name the offer, how to turn it into something that people want to buy, and also how to have conversations to bring people into this cohort. John is really great at that. His sales advice is second to none. The copywriting advice he can do just on the fly is better than anything I've ever seen. And he takes what sounds like a very complex thing to build and turns it into something that you will believe that you can do on different topics in your expertise. If you're on the fence, you should join, because getting in a room with John and just getting to learn from him is worth it, even if you never do a group coaching program. Hey, my name is Kathleen.
You're muted, John.
As much as, yeah, thank you. As much as I love the tingling sensation I get hearing those stories and how excited it is for me, I won't play the whole playlist here live, but there's another dozen videos on there that go into detail, including people like well, I guess I can share the summary version of this, right? That let me just kind of walk through that real quick for you. You can go in and see all these videos, by the way. This is all on YouTube, not for the sake of marketing, just for the sake of access, because I don't really do any YouTube marketing. But Andrew went from 0 to sold out in 5 weeks. And honestly, when we started working together, he was in a really difficult position. He had just lost a $300,000 a year contract with Microsoft. That was his bread and butter, and was like, that was a surprise. They actually just came back and they were like, yeah, we're not going to pay you even on the invoices we already owe you for and committed to. So he went from a very scary position in his business to saying, okay, I'm going to go all in. I'm going to follow your advice every step, and I'm going to launch a group coaching program. And he went from 0 to sold out in 5 weeks. And then he sold out another. He then doubled the size of his group, sold it out again in another 5 weeks. And then since then, he's launched another cohort and sold that out as well. And so that's completely turned his business around. And he talks more about that in that video. Susie, who's someone who's run operations for, online education businesses that do, as much as $100 million a year in revenue. So she's seen behind the scenes of all these businesses that do this, that have group coaching programs and things like that. She was shocked at how much breakthrough clarity that she got in her target customer with the work we did together. But that's what we do. So, and then I told you about Mike earlier about how he sold out his program from one stage with one offer, one Q&A, and one email. There's others in here. Jill earned $25,000 from launching her first group coaching program for married couples on teaching them how to become marriage mentors. Dustin, this is a little outdated. So this year says he now earns $112,000 per quarter with this group coaching program. But last month was his first $100,000 month. So he's doing pretty well. And so he's someone who started with, and by the way, that's from 500 email subscribers. And so this is, you don't have to have a huge audience for this. When he started, he didn't really have much of an email list at all. I mean, he was like creating a brand new ConvertKit account. And so he just started the whole process of learning, identify your target customer, have an out, what do you say when you reach out to them, recruit them, and how do you sell them into your program? So there's more examples like this, but I want to just stop there and just kind of respect everyone's time because we're at out the full hour, and just kind of pause and just ask, what questions do you have? I mean, would you like to join? Is this something you'd like to have in your business? And so for those of you that are here live, please, by all means, you're welcome to post your question in the chat, but you're also welcome to just like come on screen, unmute. We could just have a live conversation in terms of whatever questions you have for me, for a coach on my team, Annette, or for an actual paying customer, Mike, who is volunteering to be here. So yeah, what questions do you have? Does this sound like something you'd like to do?
John, something I'd like to tap on that you were
Sure.
talking about here, especially like Dustin always makes me think about that, like the kind of results he's had with a very small list. And it's the difference of the right audience. Because sometimes we think we know who we're going to reach, but it's really not the right people that we want to reach, and sometimes we can reach all these people here, but just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I'm learning this lesson right now and just having to go back and retool because and I describe it as like the bell curve of these women I could work with who have all been through narcissistic abuse, right? So I created the program, sold out the program, went through it a couple of times, and I realized I was attracting women to it, but it wasn't the women that I really enjoyed working with so much. So then I had to come back. Yeah, it does. I had to come back and think about, what was that? Go back and listen to some of the serve calls I had done with people, listen to the words they were saying and everything, and then switch what I'm doing. And one of my big clues that confirmed this is as I started like, and just in small ways, changing things, all of a sudden I had the women I did want to work with started reaching out to me, and I realized that I need to go back to the drawing board and revamp some of the stuff I'm doing because I realized I could not bring them into my existing program.
Yeah.
And that was huge, So I've got like 5 women sitting there right now who came to me, and I wound up, until I'm redoing this thing, I actually brought them into a one-on-one, which has been invaluable for me because I'm gleaning more information. I'm making notes of specific things that they need and tools that I need to create for them and everything. And they're all waiting as we do this one-on-one stuff. I'm still being paid doing market research,
amount.
but they're ready, as soon as I get it ready, they want to do this other program. And the program is going to be, I went from initially 2,000 to 2,400. This next one, I'm going to kick it off at 3,600, and then eventually I'll work that up to 5 as I get it really nailed down, and I'll probably land around 5 for what I'm doing.
Great.
But being aware of that and just that entrepreneurial mindset that we're still experimenting, we're always learning, and being able to come back and dial in the audience, and not worrying about trying to jump through, well, let me put them into a lead magnet first and let me do this or that, but just actually getting on calls, talking with them, listening to what they have to say, and then creating what they want and need from that. I mean, that's what makes all the difference.
Yes, it's about closing the gap between you and your target customer. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Mike, do you have any other final thoughts you want to share before we wrap up for today?
No, I think the biggest thing is if any part of you is like this sounds like something I need, but like dismiss the but, because it literally, I mean, we tend to get in our own way. And as much as I'm a time management and productivity guy, there are moments where I've gotten in my own way. We all do. And I love to be able to create and deliver to my audience, but I've not been able to do it in a way in this kind of forum or platform, in a way that I've been able to sustain and again deliver the impact both to the clients, the audience, the people who are it, and to my own business, before taking working with John. So I encourage you to take John up on the offer of the coaching call, the complimentary, and also dig deeper into this. And if you have any questions, they've got the answers. So I'm happy. It was a worthwhile investment, and it's continuing to pay off for me. So I encourage you
Thank
to
you,
look
Mike.
into this deeply.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up there. So thank you all for being here or watching the replay. And I hope you found this useful. And please, book the call. If you want a complimentary coaching call with my team. But beyond that, I mean, you're also welcome to send whatever questions you have in, or just join. And we'll see you inside the program. So keep up the good.